Hello and welcome to episode 407 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans' weekly podcast of many topics. And before we take a journey to Kirkwall and then stay in Kirkwall forever, for a long time, let's introduce the rest of my party here. They are Aleks Franiczek.
Hello.
Wes Iliff.
Hi, everybody.
And Audra Bullock.
Hiya.
Audra, Aleks, Wes. The four of us are all recently played Dragon Age 2 for this podcast. We're sort of continuing our stories of the Warden and Hawke that we maybe planned a little bit earlier. And I say a little bit earlier because in December, we recorded 2 episodes of Dragon Age Oranges.
You almost did it. You almost.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm just gonna embrace it. I've been calling it Oranges for over a decade. I'm not stopping now. But Aleks, Wes, and I were that podcast panel. Audra is joining us for Dragon Age 2, and I guess we can start as an intro. Audra, I know you've been a Dragon Age fan for a while because it's come up inside discussions and things like our Slack channel. But how far back do you go with Dragon Age in general?
I played Dragon Age Origins.
You can call it whatever you can call it whatever you want.
Probably about 4 years ago, actually, for the first time, and then I played Dragon Age 2 right afterwards, and I kind of rushed through Dragon Age 2, so I skipped a lot of story content, and that was not fun. So I kind of wanted to get back into it and try Dragon Age 2 again just to see what I missed.
Yeah, well, perfect. This is exactly the right opportunity for that, I think.
Yep.
And now, Wes, I know you go pretty far back with Dragon Age. When was the last? I know you played Dragon Age 2 recently, but how far back do you go with Dragon Age 2?
I played it at launch. I had fallen in love with the series when Dragon Age Origins launched because I was a big KOTOR fan. So anything leaning in that direction from BioWare had my attention. I've replayed it partially once, but this was my first time really revisiting it as a whole since launch.
Interesting. And I'll piggyback on that because my story is very similar. I played Dragon Age Oranges a year or two after it came out. So and then the early 2010s became my my BioWare awakening, as it were, and I played basically everything I could from them in the first, I don't know, say 4 or 5 years of the 2010s. And I did play Dragon Age 2 at launch. I thought it was all right. Like I have some fond memories, some less fond memories of it. But I did not play it with any DLC. I definitely remember some things encountering it for the second time now and forgot some things. So this was an interesting and illuminating playthrough. And my first playthrough in, I'm not exactly sure, but at least 10 years. Maybe more like 11 or 12 years. But Aleks, I remember when we recorded the Dragon Age Oranges episodes a couple months ago, this was your first time playing through that game. And so I'm going to assume this is also your first time playing through Dragon Age 2.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like I mentioned on that podcast, even though like you, actually, Sollosi, I played through most of BioWare stuff like early 2010s. And the Dragon Age series is just the one that slipped away for me somehow. So yeah, I'm excited to just be on these podcasts and talk more about these games. 2 definitely didn't leave as strong of an impression as Oranges did, but I was pretty intrigued by just the fact that it has like a unique structure that I'm sure we'll get into, and has some good characters. So there are saving graces to this game, and I appreciated some of the more experimental things it did, but there's also some problems we'll get into.
Oh, we will. And I'd like to jump into it right away and just talk about the story outset and then a little bit of the story structure of Dragon Age 2. You are a human named Hawke. That is your character. You don't get to choose different races this time. You are a human named Hawke. You choose Hawke's first name and class and appearance. And you start out with Hawke, your mother, and your 2 siblings who are twins named Bethany and Carver, escaping Lothering during the events of Dragon Age Oranges. And Lothering is a city that gets, or I should say a village that gets wiped out in roughly the middle of Dragon Age Oranges. So you sort of start in media res, running away from Lothering, but it's framed as a story being told by Varric. Varric is a dwarf with the gift of gab, and he even is a fiction author in his spare time, and also an adventurer and just an all around charming rogue dwarf.
Just simply the best.
Yes, he is awesome.
We're going to talk about all the characters in this game, but spoiler alert, I really like Varric. And Varric is telling the story of what's the deal with this Hawke character to a inquisitor named Cassandra, and Cassandra works for the Chantry as a Templar inquisitor, and she has an Orlesian accent, aka a French accent, so we know that basically something happened. Varric knows Hawke, and this story is being told by Varric. So and Varric even breaks the fourth wall sometimes, like in conversations throughout the game. He'll mention, oh, maybe I'm making some things, I'm embellishing some things here or there. And famously, if you pick if Bethany is at the beginning of the game, Varric exaggerates her appearance and makes her look a little bit different than she looks like in the rest of the game. Like, I'm not defending these choices, just putting it out there. But at the very beginning of the game, your family's escaping Lothering. You meet a knight named Aveline, who's your sort of first character other than your family to join your party. She's from Ferelden, but she has an Orlesian name because she's half Orlesian. And I actually thought it was kind of clever how one of the stories that Liliana can tell you at the campsite in Origins is the story of Aveline, the one of the Maker's favorite knights, and as a result, it's a common woman's name in Orlais, which is a nice little connecting tissue there. But during the escape of Lothering, an ogre kills one of your siblings, and it depends on what class you chose at the beginning. If you chose warrior or rogue, then Bethany survives, and she's a mage. And if you chose a mage, then Carver survives, and he's a two-hand warrior. So right away, they're communicating, or at least reiterating, that this is a brutal world with a lot of suffering, and it'll be hard to end things in a 100% clean manner. But then you land in a town called Kirkwall, which is in the Free Marches, a loose collection of city-states that like someone from outside the Free Marches will call like a Kirkwallian a marcher, but someone from Kirkwall or Starkhaven or whatever will refer to themselves from that city. It's a sort of not really a country, but autonomous self-sufficient cities, and Kirkwall is one of the biggest ones. So you land in Kirkwall. You sneak into Kirkwall by working either as a mercenary or a smuggler for a year, time skip for a year, you're in Kirkwall, and then the story really begins. So that outset stuff, do we have any thoughts on, let's wait to talk about Aveline and Varric, but what are our thoughts on this story framework? Like, do you sort of wish you had both siblings, or are you like me and sort of wish that you had picked a different class because Carver's a jerk?
Yeah, I wish I didn't have Carver. Not so much I wish I had both.
Carver grew on me. This playthrough, the first playthrough I did, I actually had Bethany survive, and I really liked Bethany. But I ended up doing some story things with Carver that he ended up... I warmed up to him a little bit, but yeah, he's kind of a jerk.
So, did you pick a mage this time around, Audra?
Yeah.
And you know what? While we're in this here, let's everyone talk about their Hawke class choice a little bit. That's a nice little starter. I also went mage. I when I played Dragon Age 2 a long time ago, I was a warrior, so I decided to go mage this time. And so I got to get to know Carver for basically the first time, and I have to say I like it when Varric or Isabella tease Carver. I like that a lot, in fact. But other than that, my memories of Bethany are much better than my recent experiences with Carver.
I can see that.
Yeah, I picked a rogue for this playthrough because I'm planning to sample all three of the main classes across my playthroughs of all three Dragon Age games. So it was warrior for Origins, and this one was rogue, which was pretty fun overall. I was mashing the hell out of that A button though, but there were some cool moments with different abilities. But that means I did end up with Bethany, and she was an absolute sweetheart, and I really liked her. And she was kind of like my sis throughout the first act. I kept her in my party the whole time. I was really attached to her. I always gave her the opportunities to insert ourselves into conversations and help resolve things. And so I grew really attached to her, which made her death at the end of Act One because of a stupid choice I made actually really tragic.
Oh, that's
Aw.
unfortunate. I have to admit, we will talk about that soon. I did know about that Act One story moment, so I made sure Carver had a means to survive. Wes, what was your class choice and your feelings on your surviving sibling?
I'm going mage for all 3 games this go around because I've never really played much with mages before. So I had Carver, who is Carver. He, till the very end of the game, was complaining about how he was in my shadow and how life wasn't fair, and how he occasionally seemed to imply he wished I wasn't the surviving sibling.
God, Carver sucks.
Yeah.
I only knew him for a couple minutes, but oh my god.
That was
Yeah,
enough.
Carver's the only one in your family without any magic talent, because if he, because Hawke, can potentially start as a mage, and Bethany is a mage, and your father Malcolm, who died some years ago, was a mage of some renown, actually. So Carver's the only one without magic talent. He sometimes he can join the Templars depending on how stories go. So he has a little bit of resentment against mages, resentment against you for being the coolest Hawke sibling by a large margin, and some feelings of survivor's guilt because Bethany died saving the group, and he wonders maybe it should have been him, and he's just a little hot-headed, a little what was the word, a little acerbic, but not like clever enough to be like charming acerbic. It's Carver's not great, but I didn't mind having another two-hand warrior in the party, and he does mellow out later in the game. You uncover some correspondence from Malcolm Hawke about why he named Carver that, because Carver was the name of an old friend of Malcolm that was a Templar that helped Malcolm escape the Mage Circle. So Carver's named after a one of the good ones of the Templars. But Bethany she has a very nurturing personality. She's a little bit like Wynn from Dragon Age Origins, because she she's a mage, but welcomes but she's also faithful to the Dragon Age religion, and mostly accepts and the structure of a mage circle, as long as the mages aren't being really brutally repressed. Like I think, like, in some circumstances Bethany joins the mage circle of Kirkwall, but sort of resists their the activities of the circle when they get particularly brutal, and we will talk about that. But similar to Aleks, I'm intending to play Dragon Age Inquisition later this year, and I wanted to do a different class each game. But I went I went Rogue for Origins, Mage this time around, and I intend to play Warrior when Inquisition happens. And honestly, like I think Mage is the most fun class to play in Oranges, and I think Mage is a little less fun in Dragon Age 2. But let's go back to Kirkwall. Once you're in Kirkwall, you meet up with Varric the dwarf, and he says, "Hey, I heard that you have a reputation around here. I think that, and it's hard to advance in Kirkwall society unless you have money. So how about you join my Deep Roads expedition? We'll make a ton of coin." And that sounds good to you as Hawke. And basically, all of Act 1 of Dragon Age 2, and I want to iterate. This is probably the longest portion of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Just do as many quests as you can. Some of them are compulsory, but most of them are optional. To just make as much money as you can, and then give 30 gold to Varric's brother Bartrand to join his expedition. But through all these side quests, you meet all the other playable characters, which again, your friend Aveline that joined you a little bit earlier, she joins the city guard of Kirkwall. There's Varric the dwarf, who's a rogue who's involved in a lot of backdoor stuff. There's an apostate mage named Anders, who runs a free clinic for the poor and wanting in the slums of Kirkwall. Then there's a mage named Merrill, who is an elf from the Dalish camp just outside of Kirkwall, who wants to she has her own issues, but she wants to explore human society. There's another elf named Fenris, who's an escaped slave from Tervinter, who hates mages because he was tortured and enslaved by Tervinter mages. A pirate named Isabella, who was a minor character in Dragon Age Origins and is in Kirkwall trying to find a missing item or treasure of some kind, but she doesn't reveal what at first. And then the DLC character Sebastian, who is a exiled prince of Starkhaven, one of the other cities in the Free Marches. He's very religiously devout, but is an archer who's trying to claim his birthright. So those are the 7 characters, other than Hawke, Carver, and Bethany. I want your thoughts. What is a favorite character of yours, or a favorite situation from Act 1? Without getting too much into the Canary stuff, which is Act 2, or the Templar versus Mage stuff, which is the entire game, but especially Act 3.
Yeah, the way I see it, there's Aveline and there's Varric, and then there's a bunch of jerks who hang around near you.
That's pretty accurate.
Split again about most of the cast, but Varric is an absolute treasure at all times and must be protected.
You know, I the more I think about this, and I thought about this more this time around than when I played in 2011 or whatever, I really think that each one of these characters is a specific point of view regarding the world of Dragon Age. And as such, they like it's very easy to get on their bad sides or think of them as being way too narrow-minded or even or even just mean. Because with the exception of Varric, everyone is like occupies a specific space. Meryl is pro Elven society and pro blood magic because she is a mage and supports the freedom of mages, but always opposes opposes oppression of mages, and is actually more interested in summoning demons than she should be, probably. Fenris hates mages, and whenever you try to protect a mage or trust a mage, he hates that. Sebastian is pro chantry, so he generally supports pro church things, and if anything goes against what the church teachings might be, which is often like keeping mages in line, then he'll disagree with you. Other than Varric, who just is always on the side of good. He'll sometimes react positively if you react sarcastically because he's a joker. But like he I think is the only character in the entire game that I would call neutral good, because every other character has some kind of position or agenda that has them always favoring a specific group. Even Aveline, who is a total sweetheart, I think she's like the lawful neutral character in this game, because she's in the city guard, and even though she's definitely a good person, she's not really interested in doing the good thing that might break the law or disrupt public order. So I found myself disagreeing with Aveline a surprisingly frequent amount of times when she was in my party in this game. But I think there's a friendship rivalry system similar to Orange's, where there's no single unifying good evil meter like Mass Effect's Paragon Renegade, but every character has their own opinion meter, and I think it's extremely easy to, if you just say the good thing, Varric's meter will go to friendship quite easily. But every other character, it's a more difficult balance to strike. I mean, if you're mostly trying to do the good thing, which is how I was approaching this story. So I've been rambling all over the place. Let's start with you, Wes. What was either a character in Act 1 that you want to discuss, a plot event in Act 1 you want to discuss, or maybe just an angle of the Dragon Age world? Because they're trying to do more world building in this game, which is, of course, BioWare has every right to, but I don't know. It seems more specified, if that makes sense, this time around.
I was actually really interested in Fenris this go around, because I ignored him pretty hardcore in my first playthrough. He's angsty, to say the least, and gets very angry about anything mage related. But I decided to romance him as a mage just to see how it worked out.
Me too.
So I got a lot more out of him and was able to understand where a lot of that angst is coming from more than I ever had before. And he's actually kind of an interesting character, even though he is, end of the day, much like a lot of the cast, a bit of a jerk. He's also a pretty solid party member who can hold down the warrior position in your party really nicely.
Yeah, he's not a Templar, but his abilities are pretty Templar like, because he has
Yes.
lyrium tattoos that make him in constant pain, but also give him sort of anti-magic properties. He's a very angsty, edgy boy. And he flirted with me, but I did not romance him, even though I was a mage and he evidently should hate my guts.
Yeah, that was interesting to me. Like the dichotomy of him hating mages but being all down for a mage Hawke. I had a lot of justifications in my head for as to why that worked out, but ultimately it just felt a little bit like Fenris is a bit of a hypocrite sometimes. And that's okay. People are a bit of a hypocrite sometimes, so it's not necessarily like a flaw per se. Although the angst and the anger can definitely be seen as a flaw.
God, he's just bursting at the seams with angst.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's like one emo dance scene away from being Peter Parker in Spider-Man 3. Like,
yeah, he's even got the hair.
brushes it down over his eye.
I think if you're exactly the right amount of angsty or edgelordy or chuny, as it were, to love like Dante and Virgil in Devil May Cry, maybe Fenris is your favorite character.
Although he can vault over that line a little bit, depending on your sensibilities.
Audra, do you have a favorite character or Act 1 situation in Dragon Age 2?
Beyond, I actually surprisingly somehow scored a lot of friendship points with Fenris, which was interesting to me.
As a mage?
Yeah.
Well, Fenris, I think, is in favor of freeing slaves.
He's in favor of freeing slaves and like helping people who aren't connected to mages.
And I should mention,
So-
I think that your entire party is against slavery, but
Yes.
but Fenris will always have points scored if you free slaves or help slaves.
Mhm.
But usually you lose points when you ever do a pro mage thing.
Yeah. I guess I just somehow lucked out with when I had him in the party and when I didn't.
Yeah, romancing was down to the
actually-
wire for me because of that.
Yeah. But I actually really liked Isabella this time around. For story reasons, she does not stick around in my first playthrough when I played the game a while ago. So I really tried to course correct that this time. And so I ended up really liking her, and especially like her and Aveline having like the sniping because their opinions are so different.
Aveline and Isabella together is hysterical.
Yes.
Because Aveline is sort of very buttoned up, while Isabella is definitely a free spirit. She's a pirate, she's a thief, and of course Aveline doesn't like that, being a guardsman, basically a Kirkwall cop. But also Aveline is monogamous. Isabella gets around a little bit. And Aveline calling Isabella a slut and Isabella calling Aveline a prude, but both of those escalating, but ultimately they are friends, was very, very fun dialogue. A lot of Isabella's dialogue is really hilarious because she is jokey and sarcastic and flirty.
Yeah, and I even like that she looks after Meryl a little bit, even though Meryl's a little in her head sometimes.
Yeah, Isabella's like, oh, Meryl, you sweet cinnamon roll, you poor dear. But also Meryl might be literally the most dangerous party member here.
Oh, yes.
Meryl is a problem at times.
She's her own worst enemy.
Yeah, again, Meryl really cares about preserving Elvish tradition, but also is interested in human society and wants to learn about them, but also is not above using blood magic or demon summoning to help the Elven cause, which basically makes her a pariah among her tribe. Like when she leaves the Dalish elves, almost everyone in town is eager to be rid of her, because some elves lost their lives in an accident that she had with a demon some time ago. Meryl is like when you do mage adjacent stuff or demon summoning adjacent stuff, Meryl might be the easiest one to be persuaded by a demon, but she's also she's very, very knowledgeable about magic and powerful as a character. She's also maybe the most naive person in your party, which seems like a problem for a mage.
Yeah.
She's also voiced by Eve Miles, who plays Gwen Cooper in Torchwood, and
Ooh,
minor role as her ancestor in Doctor Who. So the Doctor Who nerd in me was very excited as soon as I heard her voice and was like, "Oh, I can identify that this time around."
Yeah, her voice acting and her general personality, the way it cuz she seems to just like kind of like really nice and like dainty, but like when that clashes with just like some of her like more intense beliefs and desires, it actually makes for a really interesting character. I ended up really liking Meryl.
Meryl is in Dragon Age Oranges briefly in the Dalish Elf origin, but she sometime in the year between Act 1 of Dragon Age 2 and the end of Dragon Age Oranges, she leaves Ferelden for the Dalish camp outside Kirkwall, and then things go poorly for her. But when you help the Dalish elves with a favor from, oh shoot, we didn't even mention Flemeth. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah, at the beginning of the game, you're assisted by Flemeth, Morrigan's mother from Dragon Age Oranges, and she turns into a dragon, helps you kill some darkspawn, asks you to do a favor and return a an amulet to the Dalish elves in near Kirkwall, and then leaves. And when you do that favor in Act 1 of Dragon Age 2, Flemeth is revived through the amulet she gave you. So if you kill Flemeth in the events of Dragon Age Oranges, which you can do as part of Morrigan's character quest, she thought of that possibility ahead of time and gave you a way to revive herself. And Flemeth is definitely a little eccentric, but appreciative for what you did. And it's extremely clear that Flemeth is more than what she seems. She's not just an old witch. She's a powerful sorceress that has some more going on. But
It is funny how many characters from Dragon Age 1 end up having business in Kirkwall in this game.
oh
Because it is
yeah,
a non-insignificant margin.
there's a bunch, and most of the time it's fun. Like I like this game isn't as obsessed with creating a through line through the games as Mass Effect was, but they like giving you references and tidbits, and for the most part they're welcome. I even had
Absolutely.
uh during the final battle in the game, I believe 10 characters join your party, and it's basically all of your surviving party members plus a number of NPCs that you meet along the way. And so your final party makeup can be a little weird, but I had Zevran helping me fight the final boss.
Yes.
Oh,
Uh,
you
That's
can
so
do
cool.
that? Wow.
Yeah, so if you meet Zevran in Act 3 and at least one party member is gone, because I think Carver not Carver, Cullen automatically joins you. All of your surviving party members do, and then a number of NPCs, depending on your actions throughout the game, join. And so I had Zevran in my final party in the final battle, which was dope. But
That's really
yeah,
cool. Because
so
I
so
did end up meeting him, but I think I ended up like keeping everybody I could have in the for the final act.
there's a big if else statement for us to navigate through, but they're basically if things happen a certain way, Zevran can be on your party for the final battle.
Very cool.
But Alex, did you have a favorite bit in Act 1 that you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, I think Act 1 is probably the most fun I had with the game, maybe partly because I wasn't sick of the gameplay in the dungeons yet. But I think part of it was also just because it had like a more open-ended structure to it. It wasn't really main story driven. Like you had to like meet all the main cast, of course, and doing that was really fun. And even though Wes, as you said, like they're all pretty much jerks. They're interesting jerks, and I enjoyed interacting with them. And I think it's really cool how the game just like lets them exist in the world around Kirkwall in their own places, just as they're not in your party. Feels like they're kind of just like hanging around and helps Kirkwall feel like a place. So I appreciated that, but I did mostly end up sticking with the main ones we brought up, which is Varric, Aveline, and Bethany were pretty much in my party for the entirety of Act One, outside of when I had to like incorporate another party member after meeting them. And I really liked all those characters. I had no problem shooting the poop with Varric, especially as kind of a more purpley Hawke, a more sarcastic Hawke.
Right.
Um,
Basically, I mean, this is for the audience and not to interrupt you, Alex. But most of the time, your responses can be categorized as diplomatic, sarcastic, or aggressive, and the game's dialogue will change with certain NPCs based on Hawk's reputation. Because, like, if you based on which response you use the most, some NPCs will treat you as diplomatic, aggressive, or sarcastic. So sometimes they'll encourage you of joking too much if you have mostly sarcastic responses in the game, which was the case this time around for me.
Yeah, so it is fun playing with that dialogue system, even though it does like simplify the role playing a lot. It also led to some fun moments, but Aveline, definitely our personalities ended up clashing a bit, but in the end I think she ended up being my favorite character, even though I was trying to cultivate a rivalry with her pretty much. I just really think she's got a lot of nuance to her, especially when you get later into her side quests and whatnot. But yeah, I thought yeah, Act 1, I just had a lot of fun meeting the party members and getting to know Kirkwall and the different aspects of its politics and everything. But the last thing I'll just say is that I like this idea the game has of just like, oh, let's just structure this whole game within one city. I think that's a great idea, but where it doesn't really end up working is where like Kirkwall is just kind of boring to walk around in. Like there's nothing visually too interesting about it. A lot of the different districts there are, like High Town and Low Town, like it doesn't feel like lived in. Like the different aspects of it don't feel distinct. It's just a lot of like kind of like linear alleyways and more open plazas. And like I feel like they could have done so much more with Kirkwall, considering they only did have like one city to really develop. But
Yeah, one city and a couple outside locations like the Dalish Elf camp and
yeah,
the coastline area.
yeah,
But
that are
those
just reused multiple times also.
Oh, the Wounded Coast.
Yeah, the Wounded Coast. Yeah, you visit each of those multiple times, and like sometimes, oh, maybe there's a dead end here, but a different opening here. Like even those changes felt felt recycled and samey in a
Mhm.
negative way. But there's three things I want to talk about before we move on with the story, and you alluded to one of them, the one city structure of Dragon Age 2, and we alluded to the other one too, how the game is divided very cleanly into three acts. But before I talk about that, there's one character we didn't get into very much that we need to bring up, and that's Anders.
Mhm.
Anders is an apostate mage, so he's a mage that rejects the made magic circle and chantry sponsored Templars. He's been on the run from Templars for a long time now. Anders is in Dragon Age Orange's Awakening as one of the main party members. He's sort of a sarcastic, fun-loving mage. He's almost like your replacement for Alistair in the party, in being a a funny, slightly dopey presence. But it's your healer and not your tank this time
Much more
around.
likable back then.
Yeah, no kidding. And but this time around, he's much more hardened. He really hates Templars. Not only because they've been chasing him for a large portion of his life, but also he's sort of combined with one of the other characters from Awakening. One of sort of your best tank character in Dragon Age Origins Awakening is Justice, a spirit of justice that you meet in a big fade centric quest in Awakening. But at the end of that quest, instead of returning to the fade, Justice accidentally possesses a dead Grey Warden. And so and Justice is I think maybe one of the best characters in Awakening. He is like a spirit experiencing the human world for the first time. He's he's in the body of a dead Grey Warden, and he has to confront like that warden's former spouse that is able to remember some of the human memories of that character. So Justice is a super interesting character, but he's also a spirit who is obsessed with virtue and justice. But sometime in between the events of Awakening and Dragon Age 2, Anders and Justice travel together, and Justice leaves the Grey Warden corpse and inhabits Anders. And also in Dragon Age Awakening, every character that joins your party, they undertake the joining and become a Grey Warden. So Anders is not a Grey Warden at the start of Dragon Age Orange's Awakening, but then becomes a Grey Warden once he joins your party. So Justice inhabits Anders instead of inhabiting the corpse, and Anders is because this justice spirit is inside him. He like sort of ideas of justice consume him a little bit. And before, when he didn't like Templars and supported mages before, but now he is obsessed with justice for mages. Mages need to be free and not part of the circle, and the Templars must be stopped to a degree where Anders is way less likable in Dragon Age 2 compared to Dragon Age Origins. Sorry to go off on Anders a little bit, but he's pretty important towards the end of the story.
Yes.
It's actually really interesting hearing that context. I didn't get a chance to play Awakening before I played this, but I mean, as I mentioned, Bethany was my main mage for Act 1, but she ended up dying. So Anders ended up being my replacement mage for Acts 2 and 3, and ended up being my romance because I felt my Hawke after Bethany's death, like as I mentioned, we were really close in Act 1. So I just ended up really getting into the plight of mages, and like my Hawke became basically obsessed with it. So romance with Anders felt natural, and oh my god, did that escalate into something interesting, but I'm sure we'll get to more of that in a sec.
Yeah, but back to the other things I wanted to talk about. The one city structure of Dragon Age 2 and the disparate acts of Dragon Age 2. Act 1 probably takes longer than Acts 2 or 3 and resolves when you go into that Deep Roads expedition. But anything that you leave in Act 1, whether it's items or quests or anything, because there's significant time skips between the acts, it's completely gone. If you miss something in Act 1, you can't get it in Act 2. If you miss something in Act 2, you can't get it in Act 3. Things are very, very disparate. So the game encourages you to explore everything as heavily as you can before you move on between acts, and it mostly communicates like, hey, you won't be able to go back after this. Here's a point of no return in the story. But also because it wants you to explore every nook and cranny and punishes you a little bit if you don't. And because this is a one city game with only a few surrounding areas, you really comb over every part of this game space a lot. And as we said before, it's not the most interesting game space. Like, Kirkwall is not a very lively city. There's a lot of browns and grays in the color palette of Dragon Age 2, except when you're fighting, in which case there's a nice splash of red here. And Aleks talked about it a little bit, but Wes, do you find anything frustrating or maybe interesting and good about the multi-act structure and the one city structure of Dragon Age 2?
I'm frustrated by how often they repeat locations. That's well documented. And like every review ever released there, the fact that, you know, the dungeons you go into, even if they're different places, use the same maps with just different areas closed off.
Yeah.
But and that is frustrating. That got very boring by the end of the game. But I'm more interested in the fact that the act structure actually kind of gave me some push to get through, because Act 1 is the longest, Act 2 is a little shorter, Act 3 is a little shorter. So the end of an act marked like this. It's almost like hitting the end of a season on a TV show that you're trying to binge. It's like you're renewed because, oh, there's a new season coming up. Now I've got a little bit more interest to see what this holds for me, since this is this discrete new thing. And it's the same thing with the act structure. It's the same reason that I love Dragon Quest IV's chapter structure, is there's this exciting new beginning point a couple of times throughout the game. And even though ultimately nothing big changes, it's still a little bit of a source of excitement, a little bit of a bump when I'm in the lull of, oh god, I've been in these areas for 20 hours doing the same things, doing the same combat, I haven't evolved. There's kind of that excitement of, hey, there's something new, you know, around the corner, even if it's just, you know, a new story beat to be dealing with, or a time skip or what have you.
Yeah, I kind of thought they did the build up to the end of each act really interesting and very powerful.
Agreed.
Act 2 in particular, I kind of love the ending.
The end point of each act is dramatic and heavy in a way that nothing else in Dragon Age 2 is. But yeah, let's talk about the end of Act 1 now, because you go on that Deep Roads expedition, and you explore a Deep Roads dungeon that's, for thankfully, not a repeated, reused dungeon area for once. Although maybe you go back to it in Act 3 or something. I didn't notice any much repetition in this part of the story. But it's interesting because you meet some strange Deep Roads entities. You find some ancient dwarven ruins that are mostly untouched, which has Varric and Bartrand very excited. But near the end, you find an idol made of lyrium, and Bartrand becomes entranced by it, steals the idol, and leaves you and your party, including Varric, to die in the Deep Roads. And you eventually find a way to escape safely, but here's one of the first major decision points of the game. If before you join the Deep Roads expedition, Bethany or Carver, whichever's in your party, really wants to join you on the trip, and your mother doesn't want is worried about the safety of her kids, so she's mostly accepted your main character Hawke going, but she doesn't want the sibling to go. If your sibling does go, they will be attacked by a dark spawn or wounded by a dark spawn and die in the Deep Roads, unless you also bring Anders along, because then Anders gets the idea, well, if they're dying from a darkspawn taint, if we make them into a Grey Warden and have them undergo the joining, they'll become a Grey Warden for the rest of their life and become a slave to that service, but they will survive. But if you leave them at home and don't bring Bethany or Carver along, then Bethany will be captured by the Templars and join the Mage Circle of Dragon Age 2. And Carver will decide that he wants to make a name for himself and join the Templars on his own volition. So no matter what happens, whether they leave with the Grey Wardens or Bethany's in the Circle or Carver's with the Templars, you lose your sibling for all of Act 2 and the beginning of Act 3. And they don't rejoin you until the end of the game. But if you bring them along the expedition and you don't bring along Anders as well, then they're dead. But Aleks, I take it you didn't know that detail ahead of time like I did. And so when I played Dragon Age ages ago, Bethany went to the Circle because I just didn't bring her along. But you brought Bethany, but not Anders, and it didn't end very well for you.
Yeah, like I said, me and Bethany were best sisters throughout the game, or throughout Act 1 rather, and she really wanted to come, and like I couldn't say no, so I thought to bring her along it would be great. But yeah, my mom was right. It was a mistake. The main thing this game taught me is to always listen to your mom, because mom knows best. Yeah, that really sucked, and it hurt, but it ended up having really interesting narrative and role playing ramifications for me, so I'm not upset I did it. It just ended up being an interesting detail in my playthrough. But yeah, I will just say that the death scene for Bethany was way too quick and undramatic and felt unpolished, and kind of took me out of the drama that I was feeling in that moment. So that was a bit of a bummer. But like a lot of aspects of this game just feel a little clunky and unfinished, and that was one of them.
No, but Aleks was the only person that had Bethany in this playthrough. Audra, what happened to Carver at the end of Act 1 for you?
I had actually brought Anders along for the healing, and he became a Grey Warden. So.
All right, that is also what happened to me, but I also knew that I didn't like Carver and didn't want him to become a Templar because I had done the research on this plot point a long time ago. So I did the same thing. I brought along Anders and Carver joined the Grey Wardens. What happened to Carver in your playthrough, Wes?
Same thing. I did not want him to become a Templar because then I would probably just start a fight with this dude. So he went ahead and became a Grey Warden.
Extremely fair, because I mean I already didn't like parts of Carver's personality, and my feeling is those parts of Carver would be worse if he became a Templar.
Agreed. That is exactly my thought process. The best version of Carver is one that has become something bigger than himself somewhere away from me. This is the best possible iteration of Carver for me.
Or dead.
Okay, counterpoint, the best Carver is a dead Carver with a surviving Bethany.
Okay, that's fair. But I was going to be a mage, so there was no fight in that destiny.
But speaking of mages and Templars, there are really two central conflicts at the middle of Dragon Age 2. At the end of Act 1, when you escape through the deep roads with Varric, Bartron's disappeared, but you still bring back a ton of treasure from the Deep Roads expedition. So Hawke is able to purchase his family's old estate in Kirkwall. You have a new base of operations. Varric it makes a lot of money too, so he's much more successful. And so you have... you're in a better social standing at the beginning of Act 2. But there's two conflicts in Kirkwall that really overshadow the entire game. First is mages and Templars. There's a large magic circle in Dragon Age 2, and this is not like the magic circle, like magic shop that you'll see at the mall, with a a sad bearded man in his 50s teaching magic tricks to kids. The magic circle in the Dragon Age world is a church or chantry sponsored containment for mages, so that they use their powers for good and can't use blood magic or accidentally summon demons. But the magic circle in Kirkwall is a is run by Templars, just like all mage circles are. But these Templars are numerous and powerful and brutal, led by and Orsino is leader of the mage circle. He's an elf enchanter, and Meredith is the captain or the commander of the Templars in Kirkwall. And the Templars are almost like a private army within Kirkwall, saying that they're doing the Chantry's will, saying that they're protecting the people, but really they are hunting and imprisoning and abusing mages a lot. And there are some good Templars, like the Vice Commander Cullen, who was a minor Templar character in Dragon Age Oranges, seems to be a little bit more empathetic than Meredith. And there's another but there's another Templar that's good that ends up trying to help mages.
Thrask, I think.
Yeah, Thrask, that's him. And Thrask can, his story can end well or very poorly depending on the choices that you make. But there's multiple instances of Templars that are abusive, even sexually abusive towards mages. And there's a lot of just throughout all three acts of the Dragon Age 2. There's a do you support the Templars? Do you support the mages? Or a lot of obvious atrocities committed by Templars, but also there is a real danger of mages going to blood magic and summoning a demon, which is potentially city threatening.
There are like no mages that don't resort to blood magic at some point.
Exactly.
In this damn game.
Yeah.
But
Zero.
I feel like mages were much more sympathetic in the first game because they want to communicate that any mage can go full demon at any time in this game. And like other than maybe the Fenrir quest, which was
I love
quite
the Fenrir quest.
which is maybe my favorite Act 2 quest in the entire game. Like almost every mage has a bad ending for them, and that's maybe a foreshadowing for Anders and Meryl in your party. But the Fenrir quest is a lady whose son is a mage, but she doesn't want to give him up to the Templars. You help him. You bring the keeper from the Dalish elves to try to help him out. It turns out he's a very, very high potential, powerful mage. You end up entering his dream, defeating the demons trying to, or outwitting the demons trying to tempt him in his dream. And he can either die or leave Kirkwall to try and learn to be a mage in Tevinter, which is the most pro mage society in the Dragon Age world. And Fenrir's quest can go a lot of different ways. There's a lot of demon negotiation. You see a lot of your party's feelings about mages and demons in that quest. It's my favorite part of Act 2 of Dragon Age 2. But the other big conflict, I'm talking way too much and I apologize already, is the Kunari. A Kunari expedition landed in Kirkwall sometime before you arrive in Kirkwall, and they won't leave. And that's a problem because, I mean, the Kunari do have a peace treaty with Kirkwall, so they're not attacking anyone, but they also won't say why they're there. They won't say why they can't leave. And Kunari society is clashing with Kirkwall society in sometimes interesting ways, sometimes more adversarial ways. Like a lot of people, including a small group of Templars, are believe that the Kunari way of life threatens the Chantry's teachings, so they're trying to eliminate them. But the Kunari have a very specific sort of predestination and caste system in their culture that gives them a lot of conviction and appeals to some people in Kirkwall, including the mayor's son. Joins Kunari society, which is a big plot point in Act 2. So it can be about Templars and mages, or it can be a side quest or about the Kunari. Well, actually, you know what? Screw that. We're going to talk about the Kunari. You learn way more about the Kunari in Dragon Age 2 compared to Dragon Age Oranges. And I find them really fascinating. What are our thoughts on the Kunari, specifically the ones in Kirkwall? And I should bring up, including their leader, the Arashok.
The thing that fascinated me the most was that the Kunari are separately both a religion of sorts and a race. That Kunari are these horned people, large of stature, but that does not necessarily mean they're a part of the Qun. and you don't have to be Kunari to be part of the Kun. The Kun, it's a fascinating little, like, there are analogs in real life for religions and peoples being, having the same origin but not necessarily being the same thing. And I thought that was one of the most fascinating points to learn about here, because you had barely scraped the surface with Sten and Dragon Age Origins, about the Kunari people, and it was a lot harder then to understand how the Kunari religion works. And in this game, you get a real good face full of it. You can fully interact with that religion and understand how it works.
There's a lot of side quests that bring you into direct contact with the Kunari and teach you a lot about the Kunari, and it all culminates in the sort of dramatic plot point at the end of Act 2. But Audra, what are your thoughts on the Kunari and the Kun? Which I should say, the Kun is sort of their religion / way of life, and Kunari by definition are followers of the Kun, and they are always accepting followers, like outsiders joining the Kun, which becomes a problem when the mayor's son joins. But what are your thoughts?
I found them fascinating. I really liked how much they explored them compared to Origins, and I really liked the go into the DLC a little bit, the Mark of the Assassin DLC that explored a non-horned person who's a member of the Kun, and kind of even sets up more of their belief system and the caste system, and it was a really interesting thing. And I kind of like the whole idea that you could build respect and honor with the Arashok, depending on how you acted.
And the end of Act 2 changes vastly depending on whether or not you did.
Yeah. And I like the Cerebos, the mage plot line with the Kunari.
The Kunari are also treat their mages very harshly. They keep them in chains constantly and basically make them a complete puppet of a controller, right? There is a Cerebos, again a Kunari mage that you sort of smuggle away from the Kunari. One of the mages in Kirkwall wants the Cerebos to escape and leave a good life, but after you defeat the Cerebos's handlers pursuing you, and set it free, and even it even has like a mask that prevents it from speaking, and you remove its collar and mask. It says no, he even tells you, no, I'm a Cerebos. My role within the Kun is to be a Cerebos, and if you free me from this, then I'm nothing. And then he willingly takes his own life. Again, communicating the plight of mages and the harshness of Dragon Quest. Oh no, it happened again. The harshness of Dragon Age's world, and how rigid the Kun is. But I found it fascinating, and there's several side quests and conversation points with the Arashok. If you handle them in an honorable way, it scores points with the Arashok, and I forget the exact number, but it's something like there's 10 ways to score points, and if you get 7 or 8 by the end of Act 2, then the Arashok will consider you I forget the word. Is it a Ben Kassarath? Or I like an honorable
Ben
person.
Hassarath.
Yeah, Ben Hassarath. That's it. Yeah, which is a person of honor outside the Kun. And if he deems you a Ben Hassarath, then the ending of Act 2 can go much differently. I was mostly pro Kunari, but I don't think I got enough points to be Ben Hassarath, and it's mostly because I haven't mentioned this yet. In this playthrough, I romanced Isabella, because I reacted to most things sarcastically, but pro freedom and pro mage for the most part. So I was actually on the way to rivalries with Aveline, Fenris, and Sebastian in this game, but was absolutely the best friend of Varric, Anders, Meryl, and Isabella. And I don't know, for some reason my Hawke, who was a female mage, decided that Isabella was the one, and I couldn't give her up to the Arashok at the end of Act 2, which was not very Ben Hassarath of me.
Well, you get the chance to challenge him.
I did, and let me tell you, as a mage, that's real interesting.
Yeah,
that was not an easy battle.
No, I had
It was
to
a kiting battle.
replay it a couple times.
Yes, I changed my entire strategy. Again, I intended to play this game as a blood mage and be pro mage the entire game. And blood magic in this game is pretty good. It makes you immune to regular healing, so you can't heal yourself with potions or healing spells if you have blood magic turned on. but it also lets you but it does let you heal gradually with with regenerating equipment, like heal this much HP per second. And so if you equip a lot of regenerating equipment, it uses and you use your health bar instead of your mana bar to cast spells. You can use your useless mana bar to have passives on all the time, like elemental weapons or arcane shield or whatever. Uh, and it was fine for Act 1, but in Act 2, it just got less and less fun. And I also felt like I had to have Anders in my party all the time because I didn't have a reliable way to heal my teammates. Because I was mostly trying to be an offensive mage. And Meryl, because she's a blood mage, every character in this game has their own unique skill tree, and then one skill tree available to Hawke that they can't use. Meryl can't learn healing spells, so she's a mage with one of the mage's key tools taken away from her. Anders, I think, can't use. I think he can't use entropy magic, so like, he can't curse or whatever. And Bethany can't use primal magic, so she has to use fire and ice instead of thunder and earth spells for offense. But Meryl can't heal, and I was just getting increasingly annoyed as a blood mage, not being able to do what I wanted to do. So I ended up respecking my entire character and becoming a healer. And for most of Act 2 and all of Act 3, I was a support mage in Dragon Age 2. Which meant to my delight, I didn't have to carry Anders around all the time anymore.
That's honestly almost enough for me to have made that decision in the first place. Oh, Anders, why'd you become such a cranky boy? I was about to chocobo bleep there, sorry.
But yeah, Act 2, before the showdown with the Arashock, the other big thing that happens in Act 2 is your mom. There's a serial killer around Kirkwall that is kidnapping women and leaving them for dead. And there's a couple side quests, I think one compulsory and a couple optional, where you see the aftermath of the killer in Act 1 and Act 2. And eventually, and you figure out, well, it's definitely a blood mage. And there's one Templar that is trying to track down the killer, but the other Templars don't believe him. But when you do track down the serial killer eventually, your mother is his final victim. And he was trying to use blood magic to revive his dead wife. And your mom bared a passing resemblance to her, so she was sort of his final victim, intended to be his replacement. She ends up a soulless doll, clearly in suffering. So, like, your mom has been murdered and stitched back together, and then you have to kill her again. It's brutal and awful, and there's no way to avoid it. I don't know, just another part of this game that's a little depressing, that there's really only one outcome to what happens to your mom.
Yeah, after losing Bethany, I was really determined to try to make sure Leandra lived. And I ended up doing that side quest where you track down like the suspected killer, and then if you let him go at the end, it seems to imply you can pursue like an alternate route for the Leandra quest. I'm like, okay, I got it. I'm gonna, consult him, and then hopefully like this ends up all turning out okay. But it still doesn't. It ended up with Leandra dying anyways, and yeah, that was the last Hawke other than the main character, which was a little depressing.
I thought they did a good job, like really capturing the emotion of that, and especially
For
like
sure.
Much better than Bethany.
Yes, absolutely.
It's definitely not anticlimactic. It is a sensitive emotional moment, but I mean, it's just a bummer, especially if you're in a situation like Aleks and you see your entire family die around you.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments where I feel like the game gets mean-spirited at times. Like, not just grimdark like the first game was, but gets downright mean-spirited in like the horrible ways that the people around you die, and how there is no reprieve from it, no way to save people. Just things get dark, and then they get darker, and things get bad, and then they get worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that makes it harder for me to connect with Dragon Age 2 in the same way that I can connect with the other games in the series.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Age Origins made it very clear from the beginning. This is a brutal world, and people will die. There's a lot of suffering, but I feel like Dragon Age 2 wallows in suffering a little bit.
Absolutely.
Just bad things keep happening to everyone, and it's bleak and sometimes feels almost random. Like what happened to Aleks and Bethany dying in the Deep Roads. it was an extremely preventable death, but Aleks, was avoiding spoilers and accidentally killed her when if I'm sorry to put words in your mouth, Aleks, but maybe you would have preferred that she lived.
Yeah, it did just feel like a random event, especially just the way the game handled it. Like there wasn't many opportunities for interaction. It all just kind of like happened in like a minute, and yeah, it just didn't feel satisfying, even like as a tragic plot point. So oh hi cat. Um, yeah, the I think that's a good point that this game kind of like wallows in darkness a bit. To that point though, I did actually read that apparently the writers were looking to Greek tragedy with this game. That's why it's like structured in 3 acts also. Um, being like kind of
Oh,
like
that makes sense.
yeah, being like rising action and then turning point into like bad situation, and then the falling action in the third act. So I mean, if you read Greek tragedy, like it is a little exaggerated in
Yeah,
its
no, well, Greek tragedies
depressiveness.
they're also obsessed with threes. Every play is in
Yeah,
3 acts. Every play is part of a trilogy, and at games where plays competed, they were always 3 contenders.
yeah,
And famously, the playwright Sophocles never finished worse than second in a theatrical games. But the end of Act Two, after everything that happens with your mom, the son of the mayor of Kirkwall joins the Cune. He's murdered in cold blood, which is considered hugely disrespectful to the Qunari. You learn that the Qunari are searching for a Qunari artifact that was lost in Kirkwall, a tome from the creator of the Qunari faith. And Isabella is in Kirkwall because she stole that tome and lost it again and is looking to try and recover it. So towards the end of Act Two, Isabella finds it again in the possessions of some smuggler, and you can choose um, to give the tome back to the Qunari, or keep it and fight them for it, or give them the tome and give them Isabella. And basically, there are ways, if the Arishok, the leader of the Qunari, respects you, and Arishok, I should mention Arishok and Sarabas, those are titles, not actually names. But they only Qunari that are part of the Qun only refer to themselves by title. So even Sten, the Qunari party member from Dragon Age Oranges, is just a Qunari soldier because Sten is their word for warrior or soldier. But Arishok is something like chieftain, and Cerebos is something like mage who is less than human. but basically, you can if the Arishok respects you and you give him back the tome and give him Isabella, then he'll leave without any conflict. But if any of those things go wrong, or if one or two of those things don't go the way they plan, then the Arishok challenges you to single combat. So no party members, only Hawke versus the Arishok. And the Arishok is a very difficult opponent. I think by far the most difficult the most difficult fight in the game, mostly because you're solo. And I was a freaking healer mage for it. So what I did was I just kept healing myself. I had the regen aura on and everything. I killed him mostly with physical attack, with not physical, mostly with staff attacks, because when you're in your healer mode as a spirit healer, you can't cast offensive spells. So I would start in regular mode, hit him with a fireball, turn on healer mode, just attack and use potions until I reached another break point and could cast haste again or something. It was it was an annoying fight. I did get it on the first try because I sort of knew what I was going into ahead of time. Although I didn't want to give up Isabella, so I knew I would have to fight him. But yeah, it's a rough moment, especially if you're not prepared for kiting defensive evasion heavy fighting. Aleks, you probably didn't know all of that Arishok stuff going in. So how did that fight go for you?
it was tough. Took me a couple tries, but I was determined to fight him one on one out of respect because I thought he was a great villain. So I kept going as a rogue, even though I was like kind of squishy. I basically played ring around the pillar. I was just like letting him follow me around a circle. I would wait till I got my backstab and crit stab like cooldowns ready to go. Then I'd go basically do those 2 moves, start running around again and waiting for my cooldowns. So it was a pretty boring fight. It wasn't very dramatic as the kind of situation played it out to be, but I did get through it, so not bad.
Audra, did you what kind of mage were you? Because I'm not sure we went specifically into that for you or Wes.
Mostly fire and ice magic.
So did you spec into force mage or blood mage?
Force mage.
Okay, so how did your Aeroshock fight go? Or did he let you go?
No, I had to fight him. Just I wasn't gonna give up Isabella because in my first playthrough that I did of Dragon Age 2, she actually never showed up.
Oh no, you didn't meet her?
Yeah, I didn't meet her 50% or whatever approval rating.
Oh, I didn't know that could happen.
Yeah, I didn't either then. I knew it afterwards and I was like, I'm not doing that again.
I think Varric and Aveline can't leave. And Anders can't leave, but the other 4 characters won't
depending on your actions.
Yeah, depending on your actions, either won't join you or will leave before the expedition.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and I spammed a lot of offensive magic, ran around kind of like an idiot with when I was fighting him, and they didn't say you couldn't summon the dog. The Mabari.
That's true. You can summon the dog, and that will help you in that fight.
Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my strategy, was to.
But I think the dog is DLC. So if you don't have any DLC, the Mabari Hound might not be available.
Aww.
But if you get Dragon Age 2 on a like in modern times, either on probably either 360 or PC nowadays, if you're looking for a fresh copy of Dragon Age 2, it'll come with most or all of the DLC.
Yeah, I got it on disc, just like the base game 360 disc, and played it on my Series X. And yeah, I didn't get the DLC with that.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made finding weapons almost trivial because they give you so many free weapons from those DLC item packs, which came with my PC copy of the game, that I had great weapon selection basically all the time.
Oh wow, nice.
until it came to settle on an end game thing where I had a couple pretty good options. But Wes, how did you build your mage, and how did your encounter with Aeroshock go?
Very similar to Audra in both respects. Lots of I had the exact same spec, and I did lots of run around, cast spells when I can, make sure he just cannot charge me down. Because as soon as he starts staggering you, you might as well just reset at that point.
Yeah, it could be a one shot. It was for me at least twice.
I mean, I had a bunch of mage barriers on, and I had the spirit healer thing that increased my mana regen, or my health regen a ton. I sort of kind of tanked him as a mage, which was not what I planned. But again, like Blood Mage is my favorite build in Dragon Age Oranges, and was disappointing in Dragon Age 2, so I switched to a healer, and the entire game changed. But the Aeroshock was easier than I remembered fighting him as a warrior 10 years ago. But no matter what happens, the Qunari fleet does leave. You enter Act 3 after another time skip because you saved the town from the Aeroshock threat. The mayor's dead because things just go badly for him. And Act 3 of Dragon Age 2 is all about the Templar Mage conflict. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. You get some quests from Meredith and some quests from Orsino that will basically force you to choose to support mages or Templars. And again, I think we mentioned this before, in these quests, almost every Templar besides Cullen and Thrask is a real scumbag. And almost every mage, even the ones that you set free and seem nice, almost all of them will go to blood magic and turn to the dark side. I think I met, other than Fenrir, who's not in Act 3, I think I met one mage that like ended up good and safe and sent you a thank you letter later.
Oh, I think like Elaine, I think his name is.
Yeah.
He was okay, and he did use blood magic, but it was to help you out.
Right, and actually Samson is a good Templar that if you help him get his job back as a Templar, he is one of the good ones, and he'll even fight in the final battle with you if circumstances dictate it. But Act 3 is also where you can bring all of your character specific side quests to a conclusion. Aveline will, whose husband dies at the beginning of the game, she'll marry one of her other guardsmen. She'll become
Sir Donick.
Yeah, Donick. Donick's a good guy.
Yeah, that courting side quest was actually really funny.
Yeah,
Genuinely hilarious.
and you'll oust the corrupt city guardsman. She becomes the leader. She'll marry Donick, and then she'll shut down a rebellion within the guardsman. Varric will confront Bartrand again, who's been driven mad by the idol that he found, but he and even is still insane, even though he sold the idol sometime during Act 2 or 3. Anders just asks you to sneak around the chantry, and you learn a little bit about the revered mother there, which is sort of like the chantry is mostly matriarchal, so the every chantry in every city is led by a revered mother. Meryl's side quest is brutal. She's trying to repair an elven artifact, and when you go to and then tries to summon a demon for it to happen, but it turns out that the demon that she had left sealed before was unsealed and brought into the keeper in an attempt for her to kill the demon. So you have to kill Meryl's mentor, who's been a positive presence the entire game, and then depending on your choices, either exile Meryl forever from the Dalish camp or murder everyone in the Dalish camp.
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing.
It's rough.
It was really rough. Like, I think in terms of like this game wallowing in its own darkness, like that was the worst of it for me. It's just like, is this seriously making me kill this entire camp of elves? This is kind of awful.
You either have to completely disrespect Meryl and completely disagree with her, or kill every elf in the Dalish camp. Even the friendly like merchants and smithy that were helping you minutes earlier.
You can take responsibility for it and have neither really happen. Meryl will still not like what you say, but
she'll be mad at you. But
she won't hate it as much as she does other options.
Yeah, I did the take responsibility just to... I didn't end up getting Meryl to full friendship this playthrough just because of that, but...
No, Meryl was my non-romantic girlfriend, so I killed all those Dalish. I don't feel great about it, especially as a mage, but that's where it went. Fenris's side quest is pretty satisfying. You meet the Teventer Magister that was his former slave owner, and shut all that down. Isabella, you kill the Antivan assassins that were after her, and in Act 3 is also where you can meet Zevran, the Antivan assassin from Dragon Age Oranges, who also knows Isabella. And if he likes you and Isabella's with you and you romance Isabella, there's your opportunity for a threesome in this game if you're interested.
Of course.
And I just can't. I mean, I romanced Zevran when I played Origins recently, so I said yes. I'm not thrilled about it, but I said yes. And also, Sebastian's the DLC character, his story is about realizing he discovers that one of the noble houses in Kirkwall was orchestrated the downfall of his noble house in Starkhaven. So you can sneak into their manor, see everyone there, everyone there who are mostly his acquaintances are possessed. You free them of possession. You realize that the family matriarch was jealous of Sebastian's mother. And it's a kind of a sad end to that, but
everything comes down to blood magic once
again. Yeah, exactly. And she was a secret blood mage. Almost every story here involves secret blood magic, other than I guess Aveline's doesn't. Isabella's is more about rogues than whatever. A lot of things come down to blood magic in this game.
You could probably make a drinking game with blood magic.
Oh my god.
I feel like it also just works as an excuse for all the side quests to end in like a bloodbath battle.
Yes.
It's just like, oh, they're actually using blood magic, so now you gotta kill them.
And if we did make that into a drinking game, we would have to use Bloody Marys, and I accept no alternatives. I'm sorry, but we were talking about how there's really only one way that Leandra's murder side quest can resolve. And that's also true for the ending of the entire game. Like predictably, you have to sort of choose side with the Templars or side with the mages at the end of the game. But no matter which side you choose, Enchanter Orsino, uses the research of the serial killer blood mage to turn into a giant abomination. And he's the second to last boss. And then no matter what decision you made, you fight Meredith as the final boss with her um, using the idol she bought from Bartrand, and then reforged into a red lyrium sword. And she's the final boss of the game. It's the and there were so many ways that the story could go in Dragon Age Oranges, both the end game and the major decision points, like the Brachilian elves versus the werewolves, or the mages versus the Templars, or Harrowmont or Balin. Like there were so many different story points that gave you a choice. You have almost no choices in Dragon Age 2. It always ends in this bloodbath final conflict where the first enchanter and the knight commander are all dead. Some of your party dies, I'm bearing the lead here. Anders leads a terrorist attack on the chantry and blows it up. Uh, basically, basically in the name of freeing all of Kirkwall's mages. And you can choose to kill Anders or have one of your party members do it. But if you refuse to kill Anders, then Sebastian leaves your party, and you there's absolutely zero way to side with the Templars.
My favorite thing about Sebastian leaving the party is that he promises to return to Starkhaven and raise an army to come march on Kirkwall.
Yeah.
Like, even if you had made him determine that he was going to be, church-bound for the rest of his life, he will go back on that and say, no, I am bringing an army and I'm going to raise this place to the ground.
And the crazy thing is Anders blowing up the Chantry, fighting Orsino and Meredith and killing both of them, your mom dying, basically everything except for how you deal with the Canary and whether Bethany or Carver survive, both at the beginning of the game and at the end of Act 1. There's not very many decision points in Dragon Age 2, and I think it was probably because I think they wanted to do more with this game. It's why Act 2 and 3 don't feel as fleshed out, and there aren't as many decision points. And I know that there was it's reported to have a pretty brutal crunch during the last several months of its development. But there's only a couple ways Dragon Age 2 can go, and it always ends basically the same way. And I mean, I don't mind linear RPGs that are just a story that you can't change, but compared to Dragon Age Oranges and what you would expect from BioWare, I feel like the end game of Dragon Age 2 is pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I feel like they painted themselves in a corner in a way with how they had the setup with the Cassandra and Varric talking about what happened. It was almost like they were setting it up to have just kind of one outcome.
My favorite part of the ending is Liliana showing up with Cassandra at the end.
Oh yeah, that was actually pretty much like a really good, there's more to this. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
As a setup for Dragon Age Inquisition, I mean, that part of the ending is good, but as to the events of the ending and what is how much freedom the player has to influence the ending of Dragon Age 2, I felt it was a disappointment. Aleks, I know you were pretty impressed with the suite of end stuff you could do in Oranges when we played a few months ago.
Oh, absolutely.
But I mean, I don't want to ask a leading question. I mean, how did you feel about the ending of Dragon Age 2?
Pretty disappointed, just like you were saying. Especially just the fact that you had to, yeah, the moment that really hit me was like when you had to fight Orsino anyway, because he, surprise, ended up doing blood magic.
Yeah.
That felt like really poorly written to me, especially because like did he not even have like any, like, did he not have the knowledge to know that like him turning into an abomination would like not actually be an abomination that actually serves the mage's cause and ends up fighting Templars, but literally just fights the other mages and mage sympathizers right in front of him? Like that made no sense to me, and really just hit me in terms of like, okay, this game was rushed. They didn't have time to fully write like kind of non-linear paths and anything like that. And yeah, the ending just wasn't very satisfying for that reason. And I mean, like, I'm interested to hear from you guys, because like this was my only first playthrough, but y'all played the game twice. I got the impression that like even in the like smaller quests, like the individual quests, that like no changes would really happen regardless of your choices, that everything would just end up with the same kind of fight, and consequences regardless. Is that true?
Basically, yeah. I think that what characters join you in the final fight will be influenced by side quests. Like, I mean, you can have Isabella sent off with the Canary. I had Zevran and Guardsman Donic in my final party.
Right.
But I think that some of the mages that you help and Templar Samson and a couple others can be in your final party. There's a list somewhere that you can
I
check.
think
But
Liliana can too.
oh, Liliana
maybe.
can too. Yeah, that's
Cool.
cool because yeah, you do meet her in an optional side quest in Act 3, and she's awesome because Liliana's awesome. Yeah, I basically it'll always end the same way, and the biggest takeaway is which did your sibling survive and which sibling was it?
Mm-hmm.
And compared to everything Dragon Age Origins does, that's a little bit disappointing. And also, I wonder if there was a way to, like, maybe your final boss is Orsino or Meredith instead of both, or at least the conditions of Kirkwall are different whether you support the mages or the Templars, or maybe there's a way to talk Anders out of bombing the Chantry and you end up fighting the Templars with different motivation. It just I don't know, because this game is so surrounded by darkness and suffering, and there's no way to change most of it or even change the circumstances of most of it. The end game of Dragon Age 2 is a bummer. And I mean, the gameplay of it is pretty fun, at least when you're learning new skills and building yourself up. But by the end game, it feels a little bit samey because I mean, you're unless you get really into the sort of priming and detonating gameplay that BioWare started to get into around Mass Effect 2, because you can stagger for bonuses or disorient for bonuses or brittle for bonuses. But and that gameplay gets actually better in Dragon Age Inquisition. But I mean, everything from the story outcomes to the character building feels undercooked, and a lot of people at the time blamed it on EA being BioWare's parent company around this time. I think they EA acquired BioWare in the late 2000s. Some people blame the EA influence for the circumstances of Dragon Age 2. I think that's unfair, and we need more information to make a judgment like that. But at the time, Dragon Age 2, even though it has good character writing and some good dialogue, and the world of Dragon Age is still cool, it was a letdown to a lot of people in the time. And I think with hindsight, I mostly still agree with that. Like, this is a game that is cool and interesting, and I didn't mind replaying it, but I'm not gonna, like, how do I say this? After I played the Mass Effect trilogy for the podcast in 2022, I immediately wanted to do it again and make different choices. And after playing Origins a few months ago, I immediately thought about doing a mage playthrough again for old time's sake. I don't think I want to replay Dragon Age 2 again, and I think that's the summarizes my feelings on the matter.
No, I think I kind of, out of this playthrough, I was like, I did everything that I set out to do. There's no reason for a third playthrough at this point. I felt vindicated by not missing out on certain story scenes this time around, and I'm just kind of like, I'm glad I played it. I'm like, I don't think I need to play it again for a while.
I was pretty upset I missed a few resource points in Act 2, and for that reason I couldn't forge the best runes in Act 3.
Aww.
So even the act structure worked against me this time around.
It definitely can.
I also missed one side quest because I killed an NPC in Act 1 that was using blood magic, shockingly. and then I was unaware that would close off an Act 2 side quest for me. But yeah, just things about the structure and the outcomes, just I don't know. I overwhelmingly prefer the first and third games, which is probably a common opinion.
It's kind of weird in Dragon Age 2 how many of these side quests just cut off further progress. It's not you make a decision and that leads to a branching point in the next act. It's you make a decision, and if you made the wrong one, well, you're just going to miss out on some stuff in the future. It's a binary yes or no. Does this continue?
Yeah, like the idea behind the act structure had like a lot of potential and is inherently interesting, but they just did not execute on it. And just like the game just became like exhausting to play. Like every time I got a quest where I had to go into a dungeon, like I just started dreading it after like 20 hours. I just like, oh, I'm back here. There's no sense of place to where you're going. Like even just comparing it to Origins, like there are 4 distinct zones you go to in that game, and each one is visually distinct. You fight unique mobs, like different enemy types
But you don't
in
like
each of the
spiders?
regions. Yeah. There are different like side quests that add some more like flavor to those regions, but here you're just like there's no sense of place to like what you're doing. You don't feel like you're exploring more of the world. You don't feel like you're like getting to know more like world building or anything like that. You're just going through the same hallways, mashing buttons, and yeah, like the way that status effects can combo into thing that's pretty cool. I'm sure if I was on a higher difficulty, I could maybe have some fun with that. But as it was, like I didn't want to go to higher difficulty and spend more time with this game. I just wanted to get through it.
Yeah, and in Origins, when you there is some backtracking, but whether you're going back to the Brachelian Forest or Orzammar or Denerim for something, it's always interesting, and
Yeah.
it's not nearly as just overwhelming as nope, here's Kirkwall again, here's Lowtown again, here's the same Sundermount Cavern again. It doesn't feel that repetitive in Origins and feels super repetitive in Dragon Age 2. It's again, I think this game has good writing, and I was having fun like the first 60% of the game, but then it really falls off a cliff and ends in an unsatisfying manner. And I usually try to be positive and celebratory on this podcast, but I can't help but hate on Dragon Age 2 a little bit, even though I think this was an illuminating playthrough, but not one I'm eager to revisit again, like I said.
I suppose it sets the stage well for events in Inquisition, maybe.
It does, because
Yes.
Inquisition does follow the ending of Dragon Age 2 and then becomes a much more interesting game with more than a little bit of Skyrim influence in there, for better or for worse.
The biggest positive I got when I finished this game was, oh man, I get to play Inquisition now. That was like the big, strong, positive feeling.
And on that note, so how about it? A couple months from now, want to podcast about Dragon Age Inquisition?
Let's
throw that
do
out
it.
there.
Of course.
Need to see the end of this trilogy.
I'll be curious. I might hop in on that.
Right on. Well, I'm not going to do that anytime soon, but later this year, I am going to put it out into the world. I'm going to replay Dragon Age Inquisition for the first time in almost 10 years and then podcast about it. But listeners, it's a long time before that's coming. Thank you so much for having us revisit Dragon Age 2 and all of its positives and negatives today. We do have some other dragon themed episodes coming in March. Next week, we're doing a spoiler cast on Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, a game that's also mostly set in 2 cities that I liked way more than Kirkwall. And I played that game last month, but now there's been enough time. I think we can do a nice spoilerific episode all about it. And following Infinite Wealth, I'm gonna play a much older obsession of mine than Like a Dragon. We're doing 2 episodes on Final Fantasy IV, literally my first RPG, which I played in the early 90s, but I thought it was Final Fantasy II at the time. And it's my first time playing FF4 in a long time, and that was a lot of fun to revisit as well. So that's coming in March. In April, we have already decided the April schedule. We are doing an episode, a spoiler cast on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I still haven't started yet, and I mostly blame Dragon Age 2 for that. I'm probably gonna get on that this week and hopefully finish in time for our spoiler cast episode in April. Also, we're doing an episode on Musou/Warriors games, which were always sort of RP adjacent action games with a very specific flavor and history to them, but now they've gotten way closer to the RPG asymptote with their recent explorations of different fandom-centric games. And Wes, Audra, I know both of you have a lot of Musou thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be talking a lot.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that in a couple weeks. In the intervening month, hopefully, I will play a couple more Warriors games to better prepare for that episode. But maybe most important of all, we're doing 2 episodes on Arc the Lad, the early PS1 strategy RPG. That was a very niche, popular series in the 90s and early 2000s that we haven't heard a lot of noise from recently. But people that have played Arc the Lad mostly really like Arc the Lad, so I'm excited to play that thing for the first time because I've never touched Arc the Lad. I didn't even know it was a strategy RPG RPG until probably the 2020s. So yeah, that'll be an interesting episode for me to experience. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to play it for the podcast yet, but I will let you know in time. But if you want to let us know in time any of your comments or questions about the podcast or Dragon Age or Like a Dragon or Final Fantasy IV or Arc the Lad or Musou Games, you can email retro@rpgfan.com is the easiest way to reach us. RPG Fan has presences on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Discord, always called either RPG Fan or RPG Fancom. And also, another great way to support RPG Fan is through our shop hosted by TeePublic. We have RPG Fan merch over there, and also an RPG Fan book of reviews published by Hyperplay RPG, and you can find links to our TeePublic store and our Hyperplay RPG book from rpgfan.com/shop. RPG Fan also has 2 other podcasts in our podcast network: Random Encounter every 2 weeks about randomness and what games we're playing, and Rhythm Encounter every other 2 weeks about RPG music. So please review and listen to Random, Rhythm, and Retro Encounter on however you listen to podcasts. We love hearing back from our listeners. But if you want to give us direct feedback and not leave a review, you can reach out to us on social media. How do we do that? Let's tell them, starting with you, Aleks.
You can just email me at alexfraniczek@gmail.com.
Now, Audra.
Email me too at audrab@rpgfan.com.
Now, Wes.
You can find me on Twitter at Wes Iliff or on Blue Sky at Lone Weasel.
And listeners, I have freed myself from the Templar/Twitter jailers. I am not on that website anymore, but you can find me on Blue Sky or Discord or Instagram as @evoker4dogs. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just say something that Wes said earlier in this episode. My favorite thing about Dragon Age 2 is that now I get to play Dragon Age 3. Thank you, good night, and good luck.